Tonight, promises and debates, week 3 of the federal election campaign, an American's Billboard apology, and the NHL playoff picture as the Habs' hopes hang. Politics and pucks from Montreal. This is Night Talk, episode 29. I'm Gary MacDonald. Hi, Eddie.
Hello, Gary, and 4 floors up from Gary in Montreal as well, Eddie Takalik. Hello, Gary.
Eddie, are you by chance a Montreal fan?
No, what gave that away? No, not at all.
And we'll be talking about the Canadians a couple of times this evening in just a few minutes, as a matter of fact. First, want to apologize for the late start. There was a technical glitch on our end, and so we just said, okay, once I got it resolved, we said, we'll just start over again, and here we are. So hang in there, gang, because it's about to get interesting. It is week 3 of the federal election campaign, so far filled with promises and the leaders' debates. Tonight is the French debate, which is underway, and tomorrow night it is the English debate. And of course, there's a story related to the French debate tonight. Eddie, you can help fill in that one.
Yeah, the original schedule for the debate was 8 p.m. tonight, and considering that it's the Montreal Canadiens' biggest game of the season, it's basically win or tie. You can move on to the playoffs. Lose, you got to wait for the other team to lose, being Columbus tomorrow night, and keep your fingers crossed. So big game today. And, in La Belle Province, hockey is king, and there's no way that anybody would be watching a debate tonight while the Montreal Canadiens are playing. So I believe that Mr. Blanchette from the Bloc Québécois, and I forget what other candidate had actually made the request and suggestion that they do the debate at 6 o'clock earlier, so at least they can get at least an hour in of viewers' attention before the big game started at 7. So just goes to show you what what hockey means to the constituents here in Quebec, and I think Mr. Blanchette made the right call in getting it to start early.
Well, interestingly enough, Gilles Duceppe was on Power Play tonight on CTV, and he said that there was one debate, and it was back in the early 2000s, I think, where same thing. He requested that the time of the debate be changed because the Habs were playing.
Yeah.
The other thing that surprised me was he also said that he was asked what are the leaders doing on the day of the debate, and he said, I'll tell you what I did. There was one debate in particular. It was nice enough that I went and I played 18 rounds of golf.
Wow.
So anyhow, and I see the chats are busy on the other end. The three parties have rolled out promises during the campaign this week, and all aimed at seniors, a demographic that has been expanding over the years. So let's have a look at some of those promises. And if I can remember where I put the graphic, we should be okay. Was this it?
We're bringing in tougher laws that crack down.
That was not it.
Hate-based vandalism.
Oh, I found it. There we go. Sorry, Pierre. You're up after. All right, so let's start with the NDP. Not a whole lot to sink your teeth into here. Increase the guaranteed income supplement. Expand pharmacare to cover all medications. Connect everyone with a family doctor by 2030. Well, like that. Wow.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. Yeah. Good luck with that, Jugmeat. Here's the deal. Jim Hennessy, we've got some... there we go. Comments coming in already. Jim Hennessy in St. John. Go ahead.
Yeah. I like him already.
Anyway, a family doctor for everyone by 2030. That's a huge thing. And I think Singh really is just, when you look at the promises here, there's really nothing as far as the NDP is concerned. And I suspect there are 2 reasons. First of all, he's pivoted away from trying to run for prime minister. He knows that ain't going to happen. And secondly, he's probably thinking about his future. And that, I've heard that he's in some trouble in his own riding. And of course, the party is in some serious trouble right across the country. So, is his heart in it? Is the party's heart in it? I don't know. It doesn't really appear to be. And the other side of it is maybe he's holding back because maybe he was hoping at some point to be able to be the other end of a minority government and be able to chip away the way that he did with the Liberals over the last couple of years. And we all know how that ended. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the NDP. Let's move on to the Conservatives. Protect seniors from fraud by punishing banks and telecoms that don't do enough to prevent it. And apparently that includes some pretty hefty fines. Maintain retirement age at 65. There was discussion about raising it to 70. Allow seniors to keep their savings in an RSP until age 73. That's up from age 71. And allow working seniors to earn up to $34,000 tax-free. That's nothing to sneeze at. And I mentioned on one other broadcast where I didn't even realize it was $24,000. That's a $10,000 increase. So hopefully that'll help. Well, if the Conservatives form government, and he brought that in quickly, hopefully that would help me out next year. Yeah. This year, I don't know. That's something that I have to do between now and another week and a half or so is get the taxes done. Anyhow, let's move along now to the Liberals. And the Liberals are saying, how would he get in there? Hennessy, you're hogging things here. The Liberals are saying temporary supports to help retirees cope with U.S. tariffs, lower minimum amount that must be withdrawn from a registered retirement income fund by 25% for 1 year, and increase the guaranteed income supplement by 5% for 1 year. All very temporary items in basically just a 1 year period. And we started to have the discussion about this and about there's not a lot here from any of the parties for a very large demographic that goes out and votes in solid numbers. Yeah. I don't know what they're thinking. I get, helping families and middle income earners. Those are our future. But by the same token, you have a lot of seniors who are dropping off the radar because they're living on fixed incomes, the fixed CPP, the guaranteed income supplement, and the other supplement, and they only go up by 2 or 3% per year. It's all based on the cost of living. And any of those increases, you don't break even and you don't get ahead. You're still behind the 8 ball. And look at it this year going into 2025, and all of a sudden you're dealing with tariffs. And now the price creep is coming into the stores with items and food coming in that have been subjected to the tariffs. So there's not a lot there, and I don't get why they're not focusing just a little bit more on that demographic.
Well, you're right. It's uncanny. I saw somewhere that the voter turnout for seniors in this country is 67% or 70%. That's a big chunk of change for voter turnout. And to watch the party heads not really provide solid guarantees for such a huge demographic, at least to get elected, it's a head scratcher for me. And not only that, the seniors are the ones that actually need the most help. There's seniors from all walks of life in terms of, how well off they are, from the impoverished to, those that are doing pretty well. It can get very expensive out there. I mean, just before we were chatting about pharmaceuticals, not all pharmaceuticals are essentially covered by government plans, right? So that becomes expensive. You're looking at eye care, you're looking at hearing aids, you're looking at dentists, dental work. I mean, that is so expensive. A dentist is not going to care whether you're 95, 70, 65, 60. He's going to charge you the same rate and amount, and that's unless he's enrolled in the dental program in Canada to provide services, and if the senior is actually eligible and enrolled for it. And I think it's 72 years plus, 7 years plus, seniors are entitled to that. So I think you're right, Gary. I mean, for a large demographic, and it's an important demographic, we've all paid our taxes up until retirement and then some. Depending on what you're bringing out of your RSPs, and then still you can't get the necessary support that you would kind of expect from the government after paying into all these plans your entire life. I guess to me it's a bit of a shame that there wasn't a little bit more meat in terms of all three leaders' platforms, at least as we're heading into the election. So a little bit disappointed in that, but I just don't understand what their logic is. Logic is on this.
Okay, and before we move along, discussing some more items from the campaign, just a reminder, folks, that by all means, we want to hear from you, like we heard from Jim, a Habs fan. Anyhow, by all means, whether you're watching on Facebook or watching on YouTube, just put your comments in. We'll see them. We'll try and feature as many as we can and respond to as many as we can. And we want to hear from you. What are you looking for in tomorrow night's debate, for example? What are you hoping to see or hear from the leaders as you try to make your decision which way you're going to mark your X? Leave it in the comments. We'd like to see that and share it and have some discussion about it. So, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has opened, are you ready for this? What could be a can of worms by saying he would use the notwithstanding clause in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to bring in new laws dealing with violent offenders and hate crimes. Here's what he said, and I believe it was either Monday or Sunday or Monday. But here is what he said.
So the question is, do I respect Supreme Court decisions? The answer is yes. And I also respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which guarantees life, liberty, and the security of the person to every single Canadian. That right has been trampled on by the Liberals' catch and release laws that have unleashed crime and chaos in our communities. And I will use Section 33 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to put an end to the Liberal crime and drug wave and to protect law-abiding Canadians against the dangers that are spreading everywhere in our streets.
Help. There we go. Liberal leader Mark Carney disagrees with that position.
I think this is a very dangerous step. We have a Charter of Rights and fundamental freedoms in this country, and it's the responsibility, in my view, of the Prime Minister, of the Government of Canada to defend that charter, those fundamental rights and responsibilities and liberties that Canadians enjoy. The politicizing certain issues with respect to fundamental rights is a slippery slope that leads to further politicization. And but we will defend the charter rights of Canadians on principle because it's the right thing to do.
No, I think it's wrong to do so. I think we should not be using the notwithstanding clause. And I'm concerned, and I mentioned this before, I'm concerned with the fact that it's being used more and more. Charter rights, human rights should not be things that we are willing to ignore or put to the side. And I'm worried that it's becoming more and more commonplace that the notwithstanding clause is being used.
So, what is the notwithstanding clause? Well, it allows federal or provincial legislatures to temporarily override certain rights and freedoms in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, specifically those found in Section 2, Fundamental Freedoms, and Sections 7 through 15, Legal Rights and Equality Rights. The clause gives elected governments the power to pass laws that operate notwithstanding the Charter, which means basically outside the Charter, for a renewable period of up to 5 years. A little bit of history on it. It was included as part of a compromise during the 1981 constitutional negotiations, especially to secure provincial support for the Charter, and is meant to preserve a balance between judicial authority and parliamentary sovereignty. And who can use it? Well, federal parliament, House of Commons and Senate, provincial or territorial legislatures. How often has it been used? Not one Canadian prime minister has used the
This would be a first.
standing clause, so far. However, not quite the same for the provinces. Quebec is the most frequent user. Are we surprised? It was used, they used it proactively in all legislation from 1982 to 1985 after initially rejecting the Charter. And later uses include Bill 21, the banning some public employees from wearing religious symbols. Mm-hmm. And of course, Bill 96.
Right.
The contentious language law. Saskatchewan has had a couple of goes at it. Alberta has threatened to use it, but Premier Danielle Smith backed away from it. And Ontario, Premier Doug Ford has used it a couple of times as well. Mm-hmm. So, to me, when you start moving into that territory, I think that it's a bully type approach, dictatorial, and somewhat lazy. You don't want to take the time and energy to defend the law that you're about to impose upon us in the legislature or the House of Commons and have it properly debated by the elected representatives. You just railroad over all of that and just bully ahead for 5 years. And then at the end of the 5 years, you can do the same thing all over again because I think the Bill 21, it was in 2019, so 5 years, that's was expired in 2024, so I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing anything, but I've been more federally focused over the last couple of months, whether anything has come up in the National Assembly.
I have not seen anything brought up either.
Yeah. Maybe they don't want to bring it up. Maybe they just want to fly under the radar if possible and not, attract any attention from opponents and maybe, have it become a bit of a federal election issue here in Quebec as well. Who knows? Anyway, I just don't agree with it. I think, as I say, it's a lazy way to govern, and it's a rather dictatorial way because you're taking away rights that are guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedom. And if that happens, then what the hell's the point of having the Charter of Rights and Freedom?
Yeah, when you have an open veto like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder in other countries that have similar parliamentarian systems for government, do other governments also have the option of exercising the equivalent of using that type of veto? I mean, I know in the United States they don't care anymore, but
that's
like
right.
Elsewhere, like in England or in France or Germany, a German parliament, do do they do that? Do they have anything called a notwithstanding clause? Maybe this is something Christian can answer for us at one point too.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure there are some back doors available to them somewhere in their constitutions.
Yeah.
But how it's framed, I'm not sure. However, and if you look south of the border, the president has declared emergencies and signed, he must be into like about 200 now, executive orders to move things and just override the Constitution completely.
Yeah.
And again, that's going down a very, 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 very slippery slope. So it'll be interesting to see if Poilievre, if he forms government, he becomes the prime minister. If in fact he carries through with this and uses the notwithstanding clause. Now, if he has a majority, a solid majority, he has nothing to worry about.
Right.
Government passes. That's it. It's there, and then it has to get through the Senate. But very rarely do you see anything kicked back from the Senate.
Well, you know what I wonder though, Gary? I mean, what kind of brownie points was he thinking to get by having a position like that during an election campaign? I'm just not relating to it. Why would he actually go out and declare something like that? He must know it would create some sort of controversy for him, no?
I think that he's coming from the point of view that I want to really show I'm serious about getting tough on crime and keeping the repeat offenders behind bars, as he said at one campaign stop, keeping them behind bars, and the only way they're coming out is in a box.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with him on that.
Mm-hmm.
I totally don't disagree with him on that. But even though it's in public interest in the long run, to suspend those rights at that point in time and suspend my elected representative from debating it and
right.
just going ahead with it, I have an issue with that. No, yeah. I totally agree with what he's saying. They shouldn't be coming out in anything but a box. There should be, no question. However, how you're going to achieve that, I think you have more support not using the notwithstanding clause.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think that this is one that you're going to get a lot of support on the streets, no problem whatsoever. So,
okay.
Anyway, well, that's something to keep an eye on, because he's also talking about getting tough on hate crimes, and I have a very brief clip of him talking about that, if I can find it. Where was it? Just bear with me for a second. I had to juggle a couple of things around. Yeah, it's this one. Okay, so here's Pierre Poilievre talking about getting tough on hate crimes as well.
We'll be bringing in tougher laws that crack down on hate-based vandalism, on violence and targeted at places of worship. We will bring in more security for places of worship. And we will deport from Canada anyone here on a visitor visa who carries out any crime. And we will prioritize the deportation of those who carry out hate crimes and violence on our streets. Those who are permanent or citizens who do those things, they will go to jail. And they will also, on top of that, there will be massive, crippling financial penalties for hate-based vandalism. And I can assure you they will be penalties that are so massive that there will never be, again, some punk thinking even once about throwing a Molotov cocktail into a Jewish business or firing at a Jewish school. They will pay a severe price for that.
Can't disagree with them on that one.
Yeah. We've talked extensively about situations like that. So, I mean, for something like that, you certainly have to get tough. And both you and I have seen a lot of this stuff, especially during the Palestinian demonstrations at our universities here in Canada. And it was just gut wrenching to see some of the damage and the vandalism that actually went through with very little punitive accountability, right? So I can see where he's going to get a lot of brownie points for sustaining that type of a position. And you know what? I'm 100% confident that that Mr. Carney and Mr. Singh, Prime Minister Carney, equally share that. They may just not be as verbose about it, but they share justice for all. Make sure people are adequately dealt with at trial as necessary to make sure that they minimize the amount of vandalism and crimes that can potentially be perpetrated out there.
Yeah, that clip, he was responding to a reporter's question, and on the weekend there had been a pro-Palestinian demonstration, and they marched into a mall, and they were inside the mall and shouting and hollering and going on. Police were called, but no arrests were made, and they were allowed to carry on because the police said they're not breaking any laws at the moment. Well, whoa, wait a minute.
That's not a peaceful demonstration. Yeah.
Right. Number one, here's the thing. If the owner of the mall, yes, it's a public area, but you're there really as an invited guest by the owner of the mall. If the owner of the mall has demonstrators in the mall and carrying on and really carrying on in an unacceptable way in a surrounding like that, and people feeling intimidated, and you know damn well that, you know, people coming in with their little ones or you know, a lot of older people would feel intimidated by that.
Well, for sure.
You've called the police to ask them to take control and get them off your property. And they say, well, they're not breaking any law. Yeah, they are. They're invading my space, my property, and I want them out of here.
Exactly.
If I'd been the owner of the mall, I would have picked up the phone, had the lawyer on speed dial and saying, get trespassing laws or charges or whatever the document is against these people now, and, you know, let the police serve them. But that's the one thing. Malls are public. They're open to the public, but they belong to someone, and the owner of the mall has the right to deny you entry to their property. Period. It's the same as you have the right to deny entry to some bozo to your unit. Well, or I have the right to deny entry to some bozo to my unit.
What would happen if you and I decided
guess I won't be getting back into your place after saying that.
Well, Gary, I mean, what happens if you and I decided to hold hands and yell up and down the mall's aisle, screaming like Banshee Indians and yelling at people and whatever else? I guarantee you that both you and I would be out of there in handcuffs because there's only two of us. Now, because there is a group involved here and there is and I'm not going to say an unjustified need to protest what's going on over in the Middle East, but when you have a group of people that are being aggressive, from what I understand, they were pretty aggressive. You know what? It's the police responsibility to ensure that nobody gets hurt, and B, you get them off that property, just like you and I would have been taken off that property. And I really think that a lot of this has to do with orders that our police forces are given not to engage such parties because A, there are cameras rolling, B, you don't want to create a political statement misrepresenting your boss, the mayor of the city or whatnot. So they'll just try to, placate what's going on and just make sure there isn't any violence that goes outside of the protest group and everybody's safe. That's wrong, Gary. Look, in the good old days, 20, even even 20 years ago. The police moved in and out you went. Simple as that.
Exactly.
They just don't have the power or a level of comfort in doing that unless they get the undivided support from their superiors, being the commissioner of the police departments or the mayors of the city. The mayors of the city don't want that bad publicity on them, because certainly if a group of protesters are going to be removed forcefully out of an establishment, A, that's going to make the news. B, it's going to tarnish the reputation of whoever's running the city, one way or the other. So it's a lose-lose-lose situation. You and I as citizens lose. The people in the malls who are shopping and just going about their business lose. The police force loses, and the mayor loses. So nobody wins in this thing. So the way I look at it, what do you got to lose? Go in there and take care of business. And it's just a shame that our police force is handcuffed from doing anything about it. They just cannot do their jobs when it's necessary. So what happened in that demonstration was completely out of line as far as I'm concerned.
Deborah writes in, do you think the authorities in Canada fear the Palestinians? I think they fear the uproar over moving in on a culture.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what they fear. And you know what? I'm sorry. I don't buy into that argument at all. They're breaking the law. They're being disruptive. The party's over, folks. Like, it's time to move in. And, if there is some hollering and crying and squealing about, you're picking on this group or that group, it's very easy. You just look at them and say, well, if they'd behave and, work within what's acceptable social norms, they're no different than anyone else that we're dealing with on a Saturday night or,
Yeah.
Move on or get arrested. One or the other. You have a choice. It's as simple as that.
And both you and I are all for protests and peace. This is what makes our country great. We've always allowed it. But then you have individuals or groups that disregard that particular rule, if you want to call it. You want to protest, go ahead. Do not be disruptive to society. It's as simple as that. When I say society, our university campuses, we're talking about shopping malls, hockey arenas, whatever the case is. If you don't have a permit to protest peacefully, I'm sorry, you should not be allowed to do that, and that's considered breaking the law. And if these individuals want to live in a country that abides by the law, you have to play by the law. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place. I mean, I don't know how I can put any simpler than that. Not taking away from the plight the Palestinians are in, or any any group around the world that's in war right now, and the unfortunate atrocities that they're experiencing. I mean, I'd protest right with them, but I would be lawful. I'd never go on a university campus. I would never break into a private establishment. Excuse me. It's just wrong. And I'll suffice it to say, Gary, again, I'll just summarize. The police have their hands are tied behind their backs, and I'm sure they were chomping at the bit to get them the hell out of there as well. Because look, you become a policeman to protect the law, protect people and the law, and I'm sure they're equally frustrated not being able to do their jobs properly.
Well, somebody has to answer for this at some point in the not too distant future, because yes, there is peaceful protest. Don't have a problem with it. And peaceful protest can be loud up to a point. Usually it's outside. You're not invading someone's space. You're in the great outdoors. And yes, maybe you're walking down the street or whatever, but you have to have the permit to do that. Peaceful protest, yes, but this is a form of vandalism in the fact that, you're disrupting people's lives. You're disrupting places of business, and it has to stop. No more sugarcoating this at all. It just has to stop. And if that means you say to the police, finally, somebody with the balls says, go in and get control of this. And they go in and they have to push a few people around and cuff a few or whatever happens, because those people then have a choice: either get out of the way and do what the police are telling them to do, whether they agree with it or not. Otherwise, they're going to they could end up getting hurt, not necessarily, like not on purpose. I'm not saying on purpose, but stuff happens. And but you have that choice. You're there or you're not. You get out of the way and do what you're told. And frankly, they have not been doing what they're told. They're not even being told anything anymore, because everybody's so sensitive. Nobody wants to, no, sensitivity days are gone. Psh, game over.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
This is the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Manel writes, I thought people that were protesting needed to get some kind of a license, some kind of an approval from the government. If that's not happening, that's what should be happening. I think you're going to find that the approvals are like permits for parading down streets and or getting permits in place for holding a gathering, like in some areas, like some parks and things like that. I don't think there's any permits being handed out by to these people whatsoever. And I'll tell you, the only permit I'd hand out would be a one-way trip to the Crowbar Hilton for Cougar Heels overnight. Anyway, the leaders' debates are underway. Both debates are being staged at the Radio Canada complex here in Montreal. The French debate is underway. It's going to be wrapping up very shortly. And I haven't heard, I don't know, you've been kind of looking over your shoulder there, Eddie. I haven't heard any real zingers being delivered, but, now I'm
not really.
Yeah. The best line I heard, and I think it may have been Jagmeet Singh, was when he said very early on in the debate something about that's about as useless, or you're about as useless as the monarchy. I thought that was a great line.
Yeah.
And how true is that?
Yeah.
But we'll save the monarchy for another day.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. So basically, that's I don't know if Manel's giving us. See, we have an update. Well, then they should be absolutely removed. That's in reference to our discussion about the protesters. Anyway, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of the conversations in the news conference following the debate. And and then tomorrow night. What are you looking for tomorrow night?
I'm sorry?
What are you looking for from the debate tomorrow night?
Well, to actually sit down and watch the debate, I think it's going to be an interesting debate for me for a couple of reasons. One, primarily, it's actually going to be a civil debate like it is tonight from what I've seen over my shoulder. Nothing like we've seen in the United States of America, where it becomes a crap show more than anything else. So hats off to our leaders for pretty much being civil in terms of their debates, and maybe throwing a grenade or two at each other, but in a very civil and polite fashion. So I'm looking for a real debate. Looking forward to leaders justifying their position, being civil in terms of their debates, and maybe throwing a grenade or two at each other, but in a very civil and polite fashion. So Hello, Gary. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was hearing something else. Sorry about that. I'm looking forward to them actually having a civilized debate where they're being asked questions and they're defending their positions, not to each other but to the rest of the country as we watch. So I think first and foremost, and we talked about this quite often as a prelude leading up to this debate, is how exactly are these candidates going to defect the integrity, and the sovereignty of this great country of ours, which is basically what are we going to be doing to defend ourselves against the insanity that's going on in Trump's United States. That's first and foremost in my mind. I want to hear what they have to say about that, and I know a lot of Canadians are as well, based on some of the polling questions we've seen of what's important to people, to the voters out there, and Mr. Trump is really important in their minds. So, looking forward to hearing what they have to say about that. The other issue I'd like to see, I mean, we're always talking about fiscal responsibility and finances and the economy of the country. That's always a discussion point for every election year. So I don't expect to hear or see any knockout blows there. What I'm very interested in seeing is what are the leaders going to be doing for the housing crisis in this country, which continues to get worse and worse and worse. Rents continue going up. Provincial jurisdictions keep on raising rents, and not the same way across all provinces. I think here in Quebec, they justified a 5-point-something% increase when the cost of living was significantly lower, and some provinces don't even manage that or put that into law in terms of what the increases could be. So, and plus, housing is becoming more out of reach for the younger generation. Our kids cannot and will not be able to afford houses in the future. What is it that you're going to be doing? And just before I came in here, Mr. Blanchette from the Bloc Québécois had a great point about how we can actually deal with the housing situation in Canada, where he basically made a suggestion to the level of allowing parents to use their RRSPs sans tax, without being taxed, if it's for purchasing a first-time home for their kids. What a great suggestion, and he's a real smart fellow, Mr. Blanchette. I don't agree with what he's representing, but his idea was a great idea. So for me, I'd like to see what the next government is going to do to control housing costs. And then, of course, the third piece is grocery costs, especially now with the tariff war going on. What are they going to be doing to help Canadians, the regular Canadian and all Canadian citizens, be able to deal with the increased cost of groceries, going to a grocery store or whatever they need to live on? So I'm looking at those three, at least from my perspective, and based on what I've seen on the news and online. Those three seem to be the biggest points that the leaders need to score brownie points on during tomorrow's debate.
I'm really looking forward to seeing if the real Mark Carney and the real Pierre Poilievre actually come out tomorrow night. We have witnessed the campaigning version of Carney. We have witnessed both the political version of Poilievre, from sitting in government and sitting as a minister, through to leader of the opposition, the pit bull going after a bone.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard more discussion along the lines that we have had over the last couple of months about the fact that he has not let go of the pit bull role, and instead of acting like a prime minister in waiting and delegating the pit bull role to someone else within the caucus or the party, but he's now in toning it down. And the real, I think, wake-up call to tone it down was when all of a sudden the Liberal lead started to grow. And if you notice that he kicked off the campaign with his wife and his children, and his wife has been with him on every campaign stop that I've had a chance to watch throughout the campaign so far. And he has toned it down. He is smiling a bit more than what he has in the past. There's still issues with media access to him. So I really want to see whether we will get at least a hint of the real side of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, because one of them will be our prime minister
Yeah.
come May. And I'm just looking at the latest polls. Canada 338 has the Liberals with 44% plus or minus 5% error. The Conservatives at 38%, so 6 points ahead. And I believe the latest Nanos poll also has the Liberals with a 6-point lead.
Yeah.
The NDP here, 9%. And I think the NDP in the Nanos poll I was looking at was in around 8%. The Bloc, 6%. And I believe, let's see, where we're at the Bloc. Oh, 6% on the Nanos poll as well. So they're all starting to line up, and the Greens too. And there was the other side of the story for the debate tonight and tomorrow night. The Green Party has been eliminated at last minute because they failed to meet 2 of the 3 guidelines set by the debate commission that runs these leader debates. You know, like, yeah, they said they were going to file, I think it was 332 nomination papers, but they never did. They never met that goal. And their support has fallen below, I think the guideline was 4%. I mean, they're out of, they should never have even been invited, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, the party really is, yes, they have Elizabeth May, and she's well known, but the party really hasn't gotten out of the weeds where some of the other fringe parties sit as well. So, you know, why should they be on the stage? Now, here's the interesting thing when you think about it. At the beginning of the new year, Poilievre was the prime minister in waiting. Still had like a double-digit lead in the 20% range or a little bit less, and the Bloc was in position to become His Majesty's loyal opposition.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that.
Yeah,
not too long ago.
Yeah, and now the tables have turned. The Liberals were being relegated to a third-rate party in around the NDP side. But now, have the tables ever turned? In the Bloc, like I heard Tom Mulcair say tonight that he's hearing that Blanchette may be in danger of losing his seat.
Yeah.
Which is too bad because I love listening to him talk. He does come up with some good ideas. And he's focused on Quebec. God love him. He's focused on Quebec. I get it. But, I think he's missing an opportunity, and I think the country is missing an opportunity to have somebody like him to kind of broaden his horizon a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
With some of his ideas and everything. So anyway, that's the latest in the polls. Let's catch up here because we have a couple of comments. And, one Greg Zed's tuned in and watching. And they are in tough, Jim. Oh, he's talking about your Habs. Maybe these 2 journalists can have a shout-out for your Habs. Well, Eddie had the shout-out for the Habs. I just sat by and,
Yeah. It's 1-1, by the way, the score.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Well.
Well, just on the polls, Gary, before you move off the polls, I was looking at 338 Canada projections. I believe you need 172 seats to have a majority government in this country. They've got the Liberals set for 193 seats. Yeah. So right now, 338 Canada has projected them to have a majority government, but things can change right after debates and whatnot. And from a preferred prime minister, the Nanos poll basically has Carney at about 50% as a preferred prime minister, and Poilievre's at 32%. So from the popularity side of things, there's a pretty substantial divide there. And you and I said months ago that this was Poilievre's election to lose. A lot has happened since then, and a lot of it has to do with Mr. Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau resigning and up and coming Prime Minister Carney taking over, a lot of things have shifted over the last 4 to 5 months in favor of the Liberal government led by Mr. Carney. And quite honestly, I think it's going to be Poilievre's election to lose again, all depending on what happens in tomorrow's debate. It's going to teeter on that. So can he pull off? I think he's going to need a grand slam home run right now, if you're looking at the polls and what the predictions are. And I wonder what he's going to do to salvage that 20-plus point lead that he had 5-6 months ago. It'll be very interesting to see. And I think going into the debate tomorrow, it's clean slate, and they're going to have at each other and try to convince voters to vote for them to be the next prime minister for the next prime minister for at least the next 4 years. So clean slate as far as I'm concerned, and go at it, boys. I think it'll be good for the country.
Oh, very much so, very much so. And Deborah writes, I want to hear more from PP. He didn't seem to be what my original thoughts of him were. Well, that's interesting, because based on her comments in the past, she was not a PP fan at all, not even remotely thinking about joining the PP fan club. So that's an interesting turn of events, and that's from watching the French debate tonight. So we know what she's looking for, and it'll be interesting to get her thoughts and other people's thoughts as to, has your impression of Pierre Poilievre changed through the two debates or the one debate that you watched? Has your impression of Carney changed even? He's when he's in the role of prime minister, as I said last week, very statesmanlike, just the kind of individual you want speaking, especially at times like this. So I don't know. This could be even more interesting than what I thought it was going to be, as far as how the debates influence people as to what's going on. So anyway, thank you, everyone. And for the Habs fans, you might want to stick around, because we do have a little piece coming up here shortly on the Canadians. So the English debate goes tomorrow night, and as we just discussed, we have an idea really of what we're looking for. So coming up, an American's Billboard apology, plus a message to Canada from a Democratic senator, and the NHL playoffs taking shape. A reminder, if you like our live stream, you can show your support through buying us a coffee. Link is in the description below. Eddie and I thank you for your support. Well, the changing relationship with the United States has meant an outpouring of disappointment and anger to what was once our closest ally. Our disappointment and anger is being felt in numerous ways in the U.S. Many Americans have taken to social media to apologize for the way the White House has been treating us. Now, one anonymous American is taking apologizing to a new level. Street level billboards, to be exact, popping up around the Vancouver area. And I think we may have a quick picture of that. If I can remember where I put it. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. And I can just scroll up.
There we go.
Yeah, this is the CTV news site. And actually, apparently he is representing a group of Americans, and they don't want any names attached to it, because they want the apology to be from everyone and not one person or group in particular. Dear Canada, we are very, very, very sorry. I don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah.
Don't even know what to say to it. And he said these billboards will be up for, I think, 2 weeks. and then they'll come down, and then they'll probably go back up again for a period of time. And get this, they're not ruling out having them go up in other Canadian locations as well. It's, I'm still seeing on social media, Americans, we're with you, we support you, we didn't vote for this, right, and what have you. I understand, I feel their pain, but, I'm sorry. We're at war. It's an economic war, and as much as you do have sympathy, empathy, whatever, compassion for the way we're being treated.
Which is very appreciated, by the way.
Yeah, very much appreciated. But by the same token, you have to remember, unfortunately, you're on the other side of the line. So, you're the enemy, per se. And am I going to be overly friendly or open arms? No. But, you want to put up billboards around here, and I happen to be selling billboards, I'll damn well take your money. Thank you very much.
Well, you know what? It's funny, though. We have, Americans apologizing like this with this gesture, whether it's an individual or a group of people. Obviously, they want to remain anonymous because, you'll never know what the consequences would be in the United States for doing something like this in Canada nowadays, right? So you got to be careful. So the effort is very much appreciated, at least by myself. And I agree with you, Gary. Look, thank you very much for your apologies. I get that, but you know what? I'm still not buying American. No matter what you say. So it's gloves off. And apology appreciated, but you know what? We got to move on. We have to look after our own livelihoods and the livelihood of our confederation here in Canada. And it's being threatened, and we're going to have to do what we have to do. And you know what? And also, I've been seeing, like you were saying, on social media, I've been seeing posts from individuals saying, yeah, you know what? I did vote for Donald Trump, but I never intended this to be happening, and apologizing for that. So, a lot of people that are playing on the other end of the United States divide in the red are also saying, oh crap, what the hell is going on here? This is not what I wanted. So just the same, you got what you asked for. And you know what? I'm still keeping the gloves on, and I don't feel sorry for you. You're living in that bed on the other side of the line. And we're going to have to do what we need to do here to defend Canada. And not only that, defend the rest of the world, as Prime Minister Carney said last week or the week before. If the United States does not want to take the lead in the world and representing a free world, Canada will more than happily step in, and I think we've started to do that quite honestly.
I think we have actually. We're stepping up in that respect, and I think that a lot of heads are coming up and they're taking notice. What?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Monel, she says, nope, I don't like PP. So she's not going to be swayed one way or the other by the English debate. Nope, not at all. Well, on top of all of this, California Democrat Senator Adam Schiff released this video last week. I happened to come across it on Friday night, Saturday at some point, and I thought, we used one of his videos a couple of weeks ago, which was, very telling in a lot of ways as to how he felt about what was going on at that point in time in Washington. And so I felt that this video, he wants to speak to Canada. So let's let him speak to Canada.
So tonight I want to talk to Canada about Canada. I would say my feelings toward our neighbor to the north were best summarized by President John F. Kennedy on his first trip out of the United States as president.
Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. Economics has made us partners. And necessity has made us allies. Those whom nature has so joined together, let no man put asunder.
Let no man tear asunder. Sadly, today, one man has torn that relationship asunder, and that's what I want to talk about today. Because I remember vividly in October of 2016, I remember like it was yesterday, when Americans were first starting to question who we were and where we were headed. I remember that Canadians put together a beautiful video, a video of Canadians describing the great things that America had done, the things that we had invented, the contributions we were making to the world. I remember watching that video and how it made me feel about being an American. And I'd like you to take a look at what you had to say, Canada.
As you're thinking about your future, we just want you to know that
you guys are great.
You really are great.
You invented the internet. You guys are going to get humanity to Mars.
Your national park systems protect some of the most beautiful places on Earth.
All your diversity and all your openness.
The fact that you're such a giving nation, over $250 billion a year is donated to charities.
So wonderful and warm and accommodating.
When things are tough, you fight to make them better. The disability rights movement in America is amazing.
You are infectious, entertaining.
Your gift to the world of jazz music.
Bluegrass music, R&B.
Biggie and pop. And
political and social activism.
Forging new paths.
You dream big.
Your quest to be the best creates the best.
A land of opportunity where anyone can be anything they want to be.
The vibrancy and diversity and the idea that we can all live together.
You know, America, I think you're already great.
You're great, America.
We all love you, and we think you've always been great.
Thanks, America. I think you're great. Stay great, America.
When I think of that video now, I have to say it breaks my heart because I know there is such anger and animosity directed at the United States from Canada, which I can more than understand. But as you were so kind to remind us Americans of the better angels of our nature, I want to take this opportunity to say a few thank yous to you, Canada, to remind Americans what we have to be so grateful for with our Canadian friends and neighbors. Let me start with the most significant, and that is that Canada, you have stood by our side in practically every war that we have been in. You have fought next to us, you have died next to us, whether it was Canadian soldiers and American soldiers in World War I, or Canadians and Americans in World War II, or Canadians who came to our aid after 9/11 and served side by side with us in Afghanistan and died by our side. Canada, you have been there for us in the most meaningful way possible, that you have put the lives of your sons and daughters on the line for your friends and neighbors out of a shared friendship and out of our shared values. And of that, I am the most grateful. And I wish our president had some recollection of that. But there is so much else for us to be grateful about our Canadian friends and neighbors, and not just as Americans, but as people of the world. My father was dependent on insulin for most of his adult life. I thank you, Canada, for insulin. And America, if you have anybody you know on insulin, you can thank Canada too. If you're concerned about the Ebola virus spreading, you can thank Canada for an Ebola vaccine. If you have a family member with a pacemaker, thank you, Canada, for pacemakers. If you like PB&J, thank you, Canada, well, at least for the peanut butter. If you thrill to going to an IMAX movie, thank you, Canada, for that amazing technology. If you have been inspired by Captain Kirk to want to boldly go
where no man has gone before,
you can thank Canada. If you're a hockey fan, you can thank Canada for the greatest that ever was.
Just a one-man show, Wayne Gretzky.
If you have thrilled to the idiocy of this guy,
cannot triple stamp it, no erases, touch blue, make it true. You can't triple stamp a double stamp. You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lord. You can't triple stamp a double stamp.
You can thank Canada. If you like basketball, if you're grateful for the invention of basketball, you can thank Canada. Thank you, Canada, for basketball. If you love music, there is so much to be grateful to Canada for. Can I get a hallelujah on that? Hallelujah. So I want to thank you, Canada, for all you've contributed in the fields of art and science and music and film, to all the Nobel Prizes that you've won, for all the inventions that you have produced. I want to thank you for the sacrifices you've made on the battlefield. I want to thank you. And most particular and most recent, I want to thank you for something else. When fires ravaged my hometown of Los Angeles, when they were still burning in Altadena and they were burning in the Palisades, I went to one of the incident command centers, and I had the privilege of serving food to the firefighters who were battling those blazes. And I can't tell you how many of those firefighters were Canadians. And I want to thank you, Canada, for sending those firefighters, many of them from Alberta, to help us battle those blazes. Sadly, I remember one of them asking me, coming back after he had his meal and asking me, do we have to worry about Canada becoming the 51st state? And I said, no, you don't have to worry about that crazy idea, that demeaning idea. But I want to tell you just how grateful I am that your brave firefighters were willing to come down and battle those blazes. And I know I speak for everyone in Southern California, if not all of California, when I say that. Now, I know that your Prime Minister has recently said that the relationship between the United States and Canada is over. And it pained me to hear those words, even as I understood the anger behind them. But I hope and have confidence that our relationship is not over, even though it will take time to mend. And I say that because one thing I know about my Canadian friends, and that is through thick and thin, you are the best of neighbors. Hey.
Well.
What a video.
Yep. I don't remember that video from 2016, the one that Canadians did and sent or posted on YouTube for Americans when they were all of a sudden realizing what the hell have we gotten ourselves into, or where are we going?
Yeah.
As they headed into the first term. I don't remember that, but it was a great video, and just even
it was a good reminder. It's a good reminder too, Gary, because a lot of these things we tend to forget and just take for granted in terms of what we've contributed to the world. So hearing that come from a well-respected individual in the world, not just the United States, and Mr. Schiff, it means a lot, and thank you for that. Doesn't mean we're still not at war, but thank you for that anyway, right?
Exactly. Totally understand, but there's good on both sides. However, the line has been drawn, so it is what it is, as they say. Okay, Up next, the NHL playoff picture is taking shape, and Eddie's watching very closely as to what's happening up the street. That's as the Habs hope to make the grade at the Bell Center. First, if you're thinking about getting into live streaming or other video projects, consider what I use to produce Night Talk, Ecamm. It's basically a professional video production center in an app on your Mac only. You can get more information and explore the features simply by clicking the affiliate link in the description below. Well, we are into the final games of the regular NHL season, and the playoffs are starting to take shape, of course. The hometown Habs are trying to squeak in. Eddie's been working on this story all week. Eddie?
Hang on a second, please. Oh, yes. Okay, I feel better now. Okay. Let's get at it. So, Gary, last week you asked me the same question. How are the Habs doing? And I said, you know what? We're almost at the promised land of a wild card spot in the playoffs. All they have to do is not lose the last 4 games, and they're in. Well, guess what? They're making it very difficult. They're at a point right now where they must win today's game, or at least tie it and go into shootouts or overtime. They just need a point, okay? A desperate point. Barring not getting that 1 point or that 2 point win, they're dependent on what happens with Columbus, who's playing tomorrow night against the New York Islanders. If Columbus wins, they advance. So Canadians' destiny is in their hands tonight, either tie or win the game, and we're into the next round. So It's been an exciting year, like I said. We're year 3 out of a 5-year rebuild plan. They had said at the beginning of the year they were hopeful of being in the mix, and Gary, they are essentially in the mix. Very nice job by the management, the coaching staff, and good contributions by the young individuals of this team. And the real good part about this as well is 4 out of the 6 Canadian teams made it into the playoffs this year. Vancouver did not, unfortunately. Calgary also did not. They got eliminated yesterday from contention because the 2 teams ahead of them, being St. Louis and I think Minnesota, won their games. Had they not won their games, Calgary winning their next game would have launched them into the playoffs as well. So good try for them. So right now we've got the Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, and the league-leading Winnipeg Jets that are advancing, along with the Edmonton Oilers. So Canadians win tonight. It's going to be 5 teams in the playoffs, which is a pretty good start. And a series I was hoping for between Montreal and Toronto, of course, is not going to happen, even if they win today. But the battle for Ontario begins, and that's going to be Toronto against the Ottawa Senators. And you know what? You had asked, are there any black horses in the playoffs right now? I put my money on the Ottawa Senators.
Really?
Yes, I would. They are playing some solid hockey. I think they're 7-3-0 in their last 10 games, which is a significant run. So yeah, you just never know. I think they're going to be the black horse and eliminate a few teams. I think this is going to go to Game 7 with Toronto. Toronto is also playing very well, so it's going to be a great series to watch. If the Habs win today, they're going to be playing against the division-leading Washington Capitals, headed by Mr. Alex Ovechkin, Captain Ovechkin. So that's on our side here. And the Winnipeg Jets, the league-leading Winnipeg Jets, are going to be playing St. Louis. And our Edmonton Oilers are going to be playing the Los Angeles Kings. And I think the way these playoffs and divisions are set up, the Oilers are facing the Los Angeles Kings for the 4th time in the last 5 years. So that's a rivalry to begin with there, and we'll see how that goes. Some of the teams are struggling with injuries. Washington, for example, so they, you never know, they might get eliminated 1 or 2 rounds down the line. And also the Edmonton Oilers are hurting. McDavid was out for a while. Leon Draisaitl was out for a while. So I think they're playing pretty banged up. And, quite honestly, Gary, after 82 games and, maybe 4 or 5 exhibition games plus the nation's tournament this year, most players go into the hockey playoffs banged up. So this is when the new season begins. The big boys come out and play. The Toronto Maple Leafs still haven't been able to establish themselves as a team that can play with the big boys because they usually fold in the first round. And it's going to come down to 4 people in Toronto, and I really wish they advance. It's going to come down to Marner, Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander. Usually those guys are packing their golf bags and getting ready even before the first game starts. So let's hope they come out and play some hockey, and I think it's going to be a good solid playoff. Some surprises. You had asked me who I was betting on to winning the Stanley Cup or being in the Final Four. I did say the New York Rangers, but they didn't even make the playoffs. I did say the Dallas Stars was a team that had to be reckoned with, and I think the Edmonton Oilers. So we'll see how it goes. So let's start with the Montreal Canadiens. If they win today, ask me next week who I think is going to win the Stanley Cup. Okay?
Sure. All right. And I will be all over that like white on rice.
Okay.
You're not going to escape the wrath. You mentioned about the golf clubs, and it was funny. I was just sitting here thinking, Toronto, they've had a stretch of wintry style weather like we've had over the last few days. So yeah, okay. But the minute that it starts to warm up in downtown Toronto, those guys will have their golf clubs in the cars, and they'll be ready to head out. See ya. Nice doing business. We're in a rebuilding year.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
But didn't you say they've been rebuilding since 1967?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the beat goes on.
Maybe this is the year.
Yeah. What's the latest score in the game up the street?
It's the wifey just told me it's still 1-1, second period.
Wow. Okay.
Well, 1-1 is good. If they can carry that beyond the third period, they're done. And she just texted me saying they're still 1-1. So
yeah, I just saw it pop up here.
Can't play with fire. Got to get that win.
Yeah. All right. Well, Eddie, another busy show tonight. Even though we had a bit of a false start, but we bounced back. Unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs. Anyway, I can take it. Great discussion. And remember, to help our channel grow, you can do that by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really does make a difference. Also, if you are watching one of our on-demand segments following tonight's show, join the conversation and leave a comment below. We do respond and appreciate all your thoughts. Night Talk returns in 7 days. From Montreal, I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Eddie?
Good night.